So, filling out these worksheets can be really helpful in starting to identify the negative cycle that you and your partner get into. Once you identify the steps in the cycle for each of you, then you can start to name it to tame it. And you can team up against the cycle instead of teaming up against each other. You can be on the same team against the cycle. And so this sheet over here explains what a cycle is. Essentially, what happens when we experience a negative interaction pattern or cycle with our partner is that our partner does something. This is behavioral reaction. So they have a tone in their voice. They say particular words. They look at us a funny way. They don't look up when we try to communicate with them. There's something observable, behavioral that you could note that you see in them. That gets filtered through your insecurities and fears about your connection. You're not aware of those right away. That's not what you're aware of right away, but that is what's happening. That you see the look on their face or the tone in their voice, and that gets filtered through your perception gets filtered through your insecurities and fears about your connections. That's what we call a trigger. Oh, you sound angry. Why weren't you looking at me? Right? There's something getting triggered by their behavioral reaction, their look, the sound in their voice, etc. The trigger is actually the fears and insecurities. So what happens? What happens when there is a trigger is that we have what we call an initial limbic appraisal. Our limbic system is very fast. It appraises its job is essentially to use emotion to appraise if we're safe or in danger. That's it. That's what it does. And so we have a quick emotional reaction, that sort of knee-jerk emotional reaction. Maybe we feel frustrated or afraid or defensive. Then there's an inner dialogue that is what we say to ourselves. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and connect this to this sheet over here. So the emotional reaction would be down here, right here. When my partner reacts this way, okay, so my partner reacts to me by described behaviors. What is it you actually see and hear? This is like scientific, right? If a scientist came in and could describe the behaviors, then you're gonna be it's really gonna be very, very helpful. How do you know they're defensive? Okay, well, there's a tightening, and there's something about them that tightens. Okay, so their body language tightens. If a scientist can come in and observe that, then that's a really helpful behavior. But, start where you are. So they're behavioral reactions, although you may write down things that are actually perceptions initially. That's what we usually do. So the behavioral reaction, and then the feeling so that gets filtered through the insecurity. That's a trigger. Your emotional reaction. So when my partner reacts this way, I often feel. Now I give another worksheet to help you identify feelings. If you put the word like after feel, it's not a feeling. I feel like they don't care. There is a feeling there, but that is actually a perception. When I feel this way, I see myself as not being cared for by my partner, would be more accurate. These are our perceptions or our inner dialogue. When we're doing the emotional reaction, you want to try and go to actual feelings: sad, mad, scared, frustrated, overwhelmed. It can be helpful in filling these out to actually look up an emotion wheel. If you just Google emotion wheel, You'll find a multicolored picture of a wheel with, I don't know if there's like 50 emotions on there. That can really be helpful in identifying the emotion words. Okay, so that is the emotional reaction. The inner dialogue is this part. I see myself as, now when we have an inner dialogue, what we're assessing is ourselves, our partner, and the relationship. So you could put in here, I see myself as not important. I see myself as not mattering to my partner in their eyes. And then you could do your perception of your partner. I see my partner as not caring, as being apathetic. And then how you perceiving the relationship. I see us as being hopeless, that we're not going to be able to get through this. So when you have this emotional reaction, what's the inner dialogue that you're telling yourself about yourself, your partner, and your relationship? And using this language, I see myself as, or I say to myself, can be really, really helpful. So then what happens next in the cycle is the behavioral reaction. And it's not, linear like this, but typically, and it's like milliseconds. Quick emotional limbic appraisal, inner dialogue about, do I even matter to you? Behavioral reaction, again, measurable. And this, we got to get humble. Okay, I turn away. I say something snarky. I slam the door. I try to ignore it, but I go in the bathroom and cry. So that's this top one. What are you doing? What are the behaviors? No judgment. We're all doing the very, very best we can here. And when we are reacting in ways that then trigger our partner and keep the cycle going, what we're doing is we're trying our best to deal with the emotional threat, which is a survival issue. Attachment is about survival. As some of you may have heard me say, our relationships affect our physiology. There have been research studies a long time ago. I'm sure there's even better ones now that showed that if someone is holding the hand of their partner and they have a good relationship with their partner, and they get a shock, they actually measure lower pain than if they're not holding that person's hand, or if that relationship is not emotionally safe. It's not a good relationship. Actual physiological changes in your body by being with your partner. So when there's a possible threat of disconnection, of them not seeing you or understanding you, yeah, we have an emotional reaction, and yeah, it's strong, because this is literally our survival brain. We are interdependent beings. Okay, so when we have these behavioral reactions, we're turning away, we yell, we leave the house, we slam the door. We're not being bad or bad people. We're just doing the best we can to deal with that threat. And we're trying to reach for our partner. We're trying to let our partner know, hey, you really matter. This really matters. This relationship matters. And I'm scared and I'm sad and I don't know what to do and I don't know how to reach you. So when I don't know how to reach you, I get louder and I push harder, or I just go away. I withdraw because I feel so hopeless to try to reach you. But we can start to undo this negative cycle by identifying our steps in it. Unconscious steps. We're not doing them consciously or purposefully. Obviously, if we were doing that, we would choose to do something that was more effective. But this is the steps that we take. And so when can we humbly identify our own behavioral reaction that is helpful for us and is so helpful for our partner to hear us acknowledge verbally, yeah, I turn away. Yeah, I push harder. Now, the key to this is once we've identified the cycle, and then over here we are also we're taking a guess at what our partner feels, right? So you're taking a guess just at your partner's inner emotional reaction. When we can start to identify, okay, when this happens, when I see that look in your eye, I feel frustrated and angry and scared, and I tell myself I don't matter and you don't care, and I turn away. But inside, you go down, 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 down below the line. When we can go below the cycle to the vulnerable primary emotions about your need for connection, that is what helps settle the cycle down tremendously. Especially if we can connect our behavioral reaction to that. I push harder, I yell louder, or I withdraw, I go play video games because I'm scared. I'm so scared that we are not able to get through this. And I need you. I need you here. And so when we can get in touch with these vulnerable primary emotions are like fear, anger, sadness. Those are basically our primary emotions about our need for connection. Then we can start to stop the cycle. Okay, so that's over here. That's the longing, and I would put in here, and I might change this sheet actually later on, but your longings and your fears. And if you think you're not afraid, look again, because it may not register as fear in your body in that moment, but the reason that we react in these ways that end up pushing our partner away is actually because our limbic brain is afraid that this person is no longer going to be there for us in some way. They're not going to see us, they'll abandon us, they'll hurt us, and that's not emotionally safe. It gets filtered through our insecurities and fears. So, with this part, identifying what the longing is. This isn't asking for your needs to be met yet. We're not doing that yet. We're just getting in touch with what is your longing? What do you yearn for? And what are you afraid of? What are you deeply afraid of? When we can share from those deep places, that's when our partner can really start to hear us. But first, what we need to do is just identify the steps that we see in the cycle, own our moves, that in particular our own moves, identify what's underneath. At first it's very cognitive, and then we get into the feeling, and the feeling is what really shifts things. And then to be able to name it. Can you actually describe the negative cycle in very plain and simple terms so that you guys can know when it's popping up, and that you can say, oh, Hurricane Sally is here. Let's take a pause, because you're not my enemy. And my brain is telling me that you are right now. Let's take a pause. Okay. So, you can, some people do actually name their cycle, something silly or ridiculous, or that has meaning for the two of you can be helpful. Or just some way to identify, the cycle is here. Let's take a pause so that we can get back into our vulnerable emotions. So I hope this little video is helpful, and that you can fill out these sheets with more confidence, and bring them into session to share with each other, and so that you can start to team up against the cycle.